Hi, this is Barry with Barry's Workshop. Today I'm going to talk about a new blade for my Harbor Freight No. 4 hand plane. So in my previous review for this hand plane, I mentioned that one of the problems it had was with the blade. Not only is the blade thin and very roughly ground, it's also not level. I was able to get an edge on it, but it wasn't holding an edge very well, and I was having to sharpen it a lot more than I like. Now there are plenty of replacements out there for Stanley No. 4. Some of them are pretty pricey. However, I found what I think is a pretty good deal on this Wood River bench plane blade. It's 2 inches wide, so it'll fit a No. 4 or a No. 5. So let's take a look at it and see if it will work for this plane. Alright, so here's the Harbor Freight blade, and you may remember it has this little, still haven't been able to ground that little low spot out. And it'll hold an edge. It gets kind of gunky now. I haven't been particularly nice to this one, but see the scraping, grinding marks? Very rough. This is what the Wood River one comes like. Fingerprints, dust aside. This blade is shiny. I couldn't use it as a shaving mirror, but front and back, it's ground, well ground. A little dirty, but can I shave with it? Is it sharpness out of the box? No. No, it has an edge. You can see it. Probably can't see this on the camera. I can see that edge there. I need to clean that up. So let's sharpen it and get it in the hand plane and see how it looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is level off my sharpening stones with a diamond plate. And I went and took some measurements. It's an 1/8 inch thick and just under 2 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and lapping the back, although as it turns out, it did not need it. This back was already flat. And I'm using the honing guide just to make sure I'm consistent. It turns out it had maybe like a 26 or 27 degree bevel, and I set this at 25, so really this is putting a secondary bevel. And I'm pushing a little bit extra on the corners to try to get a little bit of camber on it, just so those corners don't dig in. I'll probably come back and add a little bit more later. That looks pretty good for now. So let's put that together and do a little test fit. Now when I put the chip breaker on the blade, I noticed that it's a little bit narrower than the blade, so it doesn't quite cover the full width of it. And I'm thinking when I round off those corners a little bit more, it should take care of that and we should be fine. Doing a test fit in the plain body, so there's really not much gap there, so I'm going to go ahead and open up that throat a little bit. And here I'm just marking some lines so that as I file it, I'll be going straight across. And I'm using just a crosscut file to remove some of that mass. And test fit shows that that's a whole lot better. I also had to clean out the inside of the opening where it mates up with the frog. And here I'm using the file to get it close. Make sure that it's straight and roughly lined up. And in a minute I'll come back with a piece of wood with some sandpaper on it just to get it to the final shape. So the goal of making sure that this is all even is so that there's a nice surface for the plain blade to contact against, and that'll help minimize chatter. And I'm just using a little sandpaper on that stick to get off that rough edge. I went ahead and took the opportunity to sand the base and the sides on this granite stone. I've done this a few other times and keep getting closer to nice and flat and smooth. There's still some pits and still a little bit grooves on there, but one thing that I was really happy about this time around is I think I've finally gotten to where the sides are perpendicular to the base. So while it isn't shiny and pretty, I think we've gotten to a very functional state. Just have to put it back together and see what it does against some real wood. This is a piece of hard maple. This is actually the same piece I did in the other test with a rather thick shaving, but continuous shaving. And of course, we have to measure. I believe this is the result we were looking for. My life is complete. So I've got a cheapo Harbor Freight plane with the moderately priced blade, and it's a pretty workable tool right now. As far as a recommendation, having lived with the plane for a bit, I would only recommend it if you don't mind putting a fair amount of work into cleaning it up and making it usable. I've got about 3.5 hours into the body itself. That's mostly just flattening it and sanding it and cleaning the mouth. Part of that was because the blade I replaced it with was thicker, and so I had opened up the mouth a little bit to make that work. The blade itself was ready to go out of the box. I mean, I would expect you'd have to put a fresh edge on any blade, and I did on this one, but it was ready to go out of the box. I would definitely recommend the Wood River blade if you're looking for a replacement. Now, it is thicker. It's 125 thousandths. The regular Stanley, I believe, is closer to 80, so you may have the same issue with opening up the mouth. But if the mouth is already worn or uneven and you need to fill that anyway, it wouldn't hurt to have a thicker blade. The thicker blade, I think, does help with cut, especially since the chip breaker is really not adding anything because it is so thin on this plane. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the setup. And I hope you found this useful. Subscribe, hit the like button, and let me know what you think. I'd love to see your comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.